Welcome, Fantasyland, to the GOAT District. I'm JD at GOAT District. If you missed our three-part mini-series, you can check out the last 4 episodes, but three of the last 4 episodes, Shark Week, we brought in literally 3 of the sharpest in the game to help you win your drafts, to help you win your leagues in 2021. Go back and watch Abib, back-to-back FFPC champion. Guys, he won $750,000 playing fantasy football. How much would your wife love you playing fantasy football? We had Mr. Muzio, Billy from Fantasy Data, another high stakes, high winning percentage player. We had Dwayne McFarland from the FF Hustle, another consistent top 5 FFPC, FPC winner. And tonight, we do not derail off of these big names. We've got the John Daigle. You know him. Stay tuned. Smash the like, subscribe. Here we go.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's and I'll always be traded. And I'll always be traded. And I'll always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Welcome back, Fantasyland. I'm back with my 2 GOATs. Dan, we really got to get Theo's name on that intro. I mean, he's been bringing the A1 MVP list action of fantasy football winners, and that's what we bring to the game, right, Theo?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a tremendous month of guests, and tonight's just an awesome way to end June. We're less than 10 weeks away from the NFL season kicking off. 4th of July is kind of like that. Hey, it's time to really get ready for your drafts time for a lot of us, in the FFPC, NFFC world. And, I think John Daigle is going to be an awesome guest to help get us prepared for those drafts.
Dan, I'm just going to cut you off and bring him in. Theo just gave it away as if they didn't already know, but let's just bring him in, guys.
Absolutely.
Well, John Daigle, welcome to the GOAT District, brother.
Thank you for having me. I'll say it. I said it behind the scenes, but just so everyone knows I'm for real, just like Brian and Dwayne over there at the Fantasy Football Hustle, when they reached out to me to invite me on, like, they're not the ones who gets excited. I get excited because I love and respect their show so much and think those guys are both intelligent and a lot of fun. And when the GOAT District reaches out to me, I think I was in a restaurant and I ran to the bathroom and I came back out and I told the friend I was with, I was like, hey, you're not going to believe this. Like, literally, this pod reached out to me. I listen to them on the road all the time. So very excited. We have tons of mutual friends in the industry, whether it be Todd Burrows, Noah Rudell, the list goes on and on at FFPC, all the GOATs literally over there. So very excited to be here with y'all.
John just made my night. I don't know about you guys. I'm going to be blushing the whole night.
All right, that's it. Show's over.
Call it a night. It's not going to get any better, folks.
Yep.
No, man, we appreciate you hanging with us tonight. And, I mean, all 3 of us are huge fans. And, Theo is like a little bulldog right now. And, he reached out and we couldn't believe that you agreed to come on. So we appreciate you hanging with us tonight. It's a big show. We're excited to have you on. And man, let's get into the Daigle. Guys, if you don't know yet, I doubt you're watching, listening. Don't follow yet. At not J Daigle, Daigle. John, The Voice. I got to talk about The Voice quickly. There are specific people when you first coming into fantasy, like guys like myself. My friends don't play fantasy. My friends that are locally, right? But you start researching stuff, you look up podcasts, and you start recognizing voices, before names anyways. And your voice was always one from the beginning that kind of stood out. I always respected what you put out there. And whenever you popped up on a show, I get excited, and it kind of gives credibility to that show. And one of the shows that you're on right now, A Good Football Show, is like I told you earlier, definitely at the top of my list. So why don't you talk a bit about that show as we kind of go through your very impressive resume before we jump into the goodness tonight.
John McGlynn in the comments as well, saying it's one of his favorite listens. Y'all are far too kind. No, as you know, we've had some changeover, but I feel like we have kept the quality of the show throughout. Let's not be mistaken. It's taken a lot of work. There's been a lot of arguments. I'm sure my boss has not been happy a couple times as I've demanded a few things. I've yelled about a few things here and there, but I feel still like the quality of the show we've kept and been very honest in communicating with one another and just trying to keep it fresh. You don't want to bog down too much with like football talk, right? Especially this time of the year. We got a full month. We're all reiterating the same stuff over and over again. Tonight, I'm sure there are people listening. I'm going to make some of the same points because nothing has happened in a week. So why would I not have the same thing to say? Maybe some extra analysis as I keep on doing best ball drafts, whether it be tournaments, 12 mans and 3-mans. But overall, it's the same notes until training camps begin. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to work with everyone. We got Denny, we got Crane over at NBC Sports Edge, and Kyle Dvorak, and those were 3 hires that it was an immediate yep. I recall Pat Daugherty, Rotopat, of course, calling me and just being like, what do you think about these people? And everyone said yes. Like, we cannot let those guys slip through our fingers because they are so important to the industry and just so smart. So have we been fortunate enough to keep on restocking with very intelligent and fun people? Yes, but we hope to keep the synergy going this year as well.
Yeah, that's definitely important, right? When you're when the chemistry that shows up, whether it's vocally or on video on YouTube.
It's why the footballers, sorry to cut you off, it's why the fantasy footballers are still the number one, because it's basically the impractical jokers of fantasy football. They're just 3 guys going in there to hang out and then talk football, but also just slap each other up a little bit. Like it's just a lot of fun for dudes and women alike to sit around listening to, because it's essentially friends talking to one another intelligently about football. And who doesn't want that kind of content?
And you're kind of these days you're kind of hanging out with the people that you listen to in a virtual or kind of way. So talk to us a bit about NBC Sports and NBC Sports Edge. I mean, that's definitely a big name. Tell us a bit of what you do there and how you got there.
It was the changeover, obviously, switching over from Roto World, the transition to give us more of a betting outlook. We were already clearly like tops in the fantasy market, especially when it comes to free content for everyone to just come and look at everything, whether it be rankings, waiver wire, many other podcasts and other columns. But to add the betting element and then be thrown under the umbrella with a bunch of other intelligent people, Drew Dinsick, Sarah Perlman, Warren Sharp, everyone else, it was definitely a compliment to us that we are now viewed on the same level as them, and we can all basically work together. I've been on Bet the Edge so many times, especially during draft season, which if y'all were listening, I'm sure y'all did well as well during draft season, but like all you had to do was sift through the tea leaves and you got to the information. Now, how I eventually got to Roto-World / now NBC Sports Edge, whole nother story. I don't even think we have time genuinely for me to go through like my background and like the journey I've taken, because it's just different than everyone else. But it did end with being in LA one day. I was living in Santa Monica for 3 years, still writing on the side of what was my day job at the time. And I got a DM from Silva. 2 DMs, actually. Evan Silva, of course, of ETR. One said, call me. The second one had his phone number. And I called him and we chatted for 30 minutes. This was a year prior to ETR being built. He was on the final year of his contract. The transition basically began happening then. I will never clearly walk in the shoes of Silva, not only because of how intelligent he is, but also he wears like size 17. I'm like 10 and a half. It's just not, it's literally impossible to happen. But we transitioned. We went to more video. And the best part about video is that there were some people that came in and be nervous. I think they were I would like to think they were fond of me because I don't care. I just get on here and I'm myself and I talk and I love talking football. And I genuinely hope, whether I'm tired, whether I've worked a lot, whether it's been an easy day, that passion shows no matter where I go. And that's kind of all I carry around, is just a ton of energy. And I'm so sorry for talking long. That's kind of what I do.
No, man, that's why we love you.
Awesome.
Right,
that's
guys?
Awesome. No, it's very genuine the way that your show comes off. You and your co-hosts. I mean, it's never a dull moment, and it makes it very easy to listen to. And you guys are still coming with just great information each show too. And when you argue about players, it really is, like you said, it's really when you think about your process.
And you don't want to tell people like they're wrong. We all have different processes. So, of course, we're going to be butting heads at times and just disagree on players. But I just think it is most genuine whenever, you're just basically honest with each other. And I would like to think that's what we do have, is chemistry. And we're just honest with each other all the time, calling each other out. I mean, I'm kind of the protagonitor of that, of starting podcast bets all the time. And I think, like Josh Norris, I lost 2 steak dinners. I paid up 1. Hayden Winks, I'm up 2 taco dinners at Oscar's Tacos in San Diego. If y'all have never been, it's an amazing spot in San Diego. So yeah, just like if anyone ever gets out of line, like we just make sure to reel them back in and be like, that's actually a take. That's not a like an intelligent opinion. So let's bet on that to make sure you put your money where your mouth is.
There you
I
go.
like it. Back it up, right? We talk about that all the time. You got to back it up.
Of course.
Yep.
So before I pass this on, because I've been kind of hogging the mic here, just one thing I forgot to put in the show notes that you got to talk to us. And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but is John the second Emmy winner that we've had on the show? Was it an Emmy that our friend in California won? I think it was an Emmy, wasn't it?
It might have been, yeah.
He was like on set, but anyways, either way, man, when I saw that on your just. How can you not be impressed? But just tell us about the Emmy, man. I want to hear about the Emmy.
Well, so that goes back to, again, the background. I wasn't trying to unravel. But quickly, I will say it actually isn't for fantasy football. I won an Emmy for TV because my day job while working at NBC, pretty sure everyone knows this now, so we'll just talk about it, was that I worked in highlights. I was a traveling road highlights guy for Fox Sports headquarters in LA. And so everyone else had kids and wives and stuff. And like when they call, 28, 29-year-old me to go traveling on the road, it's like, yep, right here, send me out everywhere. So I was fortunate enough to be on both crews for the Russia World Cup. I went and lived in Moscow for 2 months, working there, traveling St. Petersburg and other locations.
Wow.
And then I went to Paris for the Women's World Cup and traveled around France. And we happened to win the Emmy for Paris. And then I just gave it to my parents because, I'm also like traveling on the road right now. Again, this is when you start unraveling everything in my life. It can get a little out of hand because I have to explain everything. But since I'm not carrying around many possession items, I just gave my parents the Emmy. It's pretty much theirs anyhow. They helped me when I first started. Clearly, they're my parents loving. And so, yeah, they have it on their mantle right now. An actual Emmy.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah,
And
that's
I
awesome.
bet your parents enjoy it at least as much as you, if not more.
Probably more, since I just have a backpack and like a microphone. That's pretty much all I carry around me. And a little,
weigh you down.
Yeah, and a little European Audi, and just slow my car down. So
That's fantastic. Love it.
All right, I got one last question before we get into the goodness. Again, if it ends up into a nice long story, we don't mind at all. But when and how did you fall in love with fantasy football?
So I am fortunate enough. Like I took a long path because it was my first love. I thought growing up, this will all be reminiscent to you. Like I wanted to do radio, which no one knows about now, of course, and write for newspapers. I always just wanted to do like 2 jobs, wear both hats, sports reporter and sports radio, always, from the time I was 10 on. And so that's what I was kind of going to school for. But initially then, once that happened, I think Ricky Gervais for me was the first like podcast that broke through, which I still think is like the funniest comedy I've seen I've listened to this day, is the Ricky Gervais, Carl Pilkington, Steve Merchant podcast. But once I heard that, I realized, okay, like this is the direction we're all going. And so I started doing that more or less, like getting my licks in on a podcast, lying to people. Adam Levitan was actually on one of my first podcasts. I was 19 or 20 at the time. No one was, again, it had like 20 listens, but like that audio editing, video editing, and everything else experience I was just doing in my free time helped me hone like my skills so much. I would never take any of those years back, honestly. And it was literally years. And so I did that for a while, and then I wasn't happy with the jobs I received in sports. Clearly, radio is very veteranrism. It still is to this day. And like, you can't just jump up as a young kid. And so once I realized that I was going to have to work like 20 years just to get to perhaps the top, I bowed out and I went to playing professional poker for a couple of years while doing fantasy football and writing on the side. So I came up with like the Moneymaker group. I never reached tournaments. I'm still a terrible tournament player. I was just grinding cash games like Joey Knish, not the Knish on Twitter, like the Knish, like actually from Rounders, just like literally just making ends meet and calling it a day after 24-hour sessions all the time. And so once I did that, eventually the list goes on, but went out to Australia to play in the Aussie Millions. Did not do well, but I loved the city so much. I stayed out there for 2 years, Melbourne, Australia. And then I saw a tweet from Jonathan Bell's a very good friend in life now. And he put out, he's starting a company called Fantasy Labs. He needs content providers. Send him an email, not a resume. Tell him what you've done. I told him what I've done, what I've been doing. He said, basically, you're hired. And we've been friends in life since, same as Peter Jennings and everyone else who is still at Labs to this day. So yeah, that's kind of the start of the snowball that there's actually a lot more loose ends, but yeah, that's how it started.
And I appreciate that story because I know, a lot of our listeners are writers or podcasters or, you start somewhere and sometimes you're kind of, it's 2-3 in the morning, you're editing something. You're like, why the hell am I doing this? And you've kind of given them that light at the end of the tunnel by sharing that story. So we appreciate that.
Just keep working. I mean, you have to get lucky. No one wants to hear that, but you literally just have to get lucky. But the reason you keep working is because when you get lucky, you get one swing at bat, and by that time you're ready to hit a home run because you've done everything. So the moment I got an opportunity, I think Roto World and Silva, NBC Sports Edge, hired me within 1 week, actually, because like I had done news, I'd done everything. So there wasn't any pausing to like training. I was trained already throughout my entire life. So just got fortunate. I got lucky, admittedly.
That's awesome, man. And if you're watching this right now, consider yourself lucky for that goodness and the goodness we're about to share. So smash the like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Share if you want to your league mates, but at least to your friends. Guys, let's get into the goodness. I mean, I think we have a really nice lineup of questions for John. It's hard when you have a guy like John on because you could probably come up with at least 100 questions and keep them here for like 10 hours, right? But, I think we've done a good job to narrow this down. And Theo, I'll pass it to you to start it off with a little dynasty flavor.
Yeah, so this question really was for our dynasty listeners. I'm sure you guys have talked at length about the rookie class and, in a redraft perspective. But I was curious about your thoughts on this rookie class long term. Are there any guys you really love? A couple guys at the top and maybe a couple guys people are overlooking.
The rookie class this year is interesting because it depends on the format you're drafting in. For instance, I am in a industry super flex league and we need a quarterback. I actually run it with a Pro Football Focus Ian Harditz. And we, the room, of course, went wide receiver heavy. So we zigged when they zagged, knowing that we didn't like our draft, but we were different. We'll take that. And so we have, for instance, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler. I mean, the list goes on and on. We just grabbed every running back because everyone was grabbing receiver. And thus, at quarterback, we were left with Sam Darnold and Drew Lock. I don't mind Sam Darnold, but not the ideal dynasty league quarterback. And so with the 1.2 this year, now FTNs, no longer Action Networks, congrats to him. Matthew Friedman has the 1.1 in that league. He's going Trevor Lawrence. Ian and I have decided, super flex, we are going Trey Lance. I think there was a passing of the guard, passing of the torch. It wasn't just an anomaly last year that the top 5 quarterbacks, everyone's drafting them and redrafting best ball right now. Lamar, Dak, Kyler, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. there's a reason why they outscored, like their margin of scoring was so much higher than the QB6. It was literally the death of cash game quarterbacks last year at both DraftKings and FanDuel, because you could no longer afford to pay down when the top guys not only have the best arms, not only are rushing, but they're also with the youngest and brightest minds at offensive play calling, building the entire offense around them. And so that was, like I said, the fact that those guys are all young that I mentioned, it's literally a passing of the torch now to where I need to get in on that. I feel like for Superflex, because it does matter. And so we will be going Trey Lance, because I think he could be in Dynasty that next guy, especially since his comp, this is best case scenario, of course, but is Michael Vick. Whereas let's say it's a tight end premium, of course, I would go Kyle Pitts number 2, actually, behind Jamar Chase. And then for just regular PPR, it comes down to really what you need, but I think the argument starts with Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts. I'm really not sure where I would go. Kyle Pitts, for instance, in my best ball tiers, I have him in a tier of his own, the second tier, behind Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and George Kittle, because like everyone says a unicorn, but it's true. We don't know who the hell like this guy is, because he could set the world on fire immediately. But everyone comps him to, let's say, one of the best tight ends we've seen. And we didn't see him. It was Mike Ditka, of course. But that's the last guy, the only tight end in his rookie year to go over 1,000 yards. And that was in 1961. Only 4 tight ends in that time, including Ditka, have gone over 850 receiving yards. And the last one was Jeremy Shockey in 2002. And if we compare him, people say he's Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson only had 750 yards and 4 touchdowns as a rookie. So I don't know what the hell to do with Kyle Pitts, especially in redraft and one-year formats. Dynasty, it's much easier to grab him, whereas, like I'm talking about, 1 year to get value off of Pitts, it's confusing, and I would love to hear everyone else's opinion, because I don't know. And that's how I'm treating the 3 major formats.
I think that's great. And Kyle Pitts, we've been talking about him all June long, as I'm sure most in fantasy are. He's reached a point where he's going at the 2-3 turn in football guys drafts right now, almost every time. And in NFFC, he's going somewhere between the 3rd and 6th round, early 6th, late 3rd. So he's just, do you think he's being drafted kind of at his peak, or do you see, a potential ceiling that he might actually beat ADP?
I could get behind him. I could at least support the decision at FFPC, for instance, to draft him in the 4th round if he makes it that far. But in solo non-premium, just like single quarterback non-premium tight end leagues, I'm not there in the 4th or 5th round yet. Sometimes the stack makes sense. Like, you start a running back and you start that anchor RB build where the one guy is going to basically support your RB 2 through 4. And then you get Calvin Ridley on the comeback, because you usually have that option in the middle between him, Justin Jefferson, and DK Metcalf. And then you're like, okay, Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts could provide standalone value. You don't necessarily even need to add Matt Ryan, since there are question marks surrounding Matt Ryan this year. So that's kind of how I've been treating him. But I admittedly don't have much Kyle Pitts in any format, and I understand that could absolutely come back to haunt me.
Yeah, you just, Pitts has reached the point where you have to make a decision on him. There's no punting. Either you're taking him or you're not. And there's people on both sides that I really respect, but I just have a hard time seeing how he's going to take on a position that's as tough as tight end is to learn. People are saying, well, yeah, but they can just throw him in the slot, which is true. But, I think if they just throw him in the slot, he's probably not going to reach his full potential either. Mm-hmm. So he needs to at least start getting into that tight end role. So for myself, I'm taking Hockenson over Pitts pretty much every time, which means that I'm pretty much getting no Pitts. And that's fine.
Do you have Andrews over Hockenson, or do you have Hockenson over Andrews?
I have Hockenson over Andrews.
Okay.
Just based on volume, especially in the FFPC where it's, you got the tight end premium. So, with Hockenson, who should be getting, just a ton of targets with so much changeover in that offense, I think he's one of the most likely ones to get those targets. Whereas Andrews just added a lot of competition. While he's still going to be a central part of that offense, I just don't trust the volume in in Baltimore as much as I trust what the volume will probably be in Detroit.
And that's what it comes down to, right? Is to be the 2019 offense is what you would be betting on, and just efficiency over volume.
Right.
Pat Carrain mentioned this in a podcast I was listening to today, that even Marquise Brown is the wide receiver 30, I believe, in that Lamar Jackson MVP year, averaged 26 routes a game. Like, it was not due to volume at all. It was just because they were just so damn good. I think, though, I'm not taking him as my tight. I'm not taking him at tight end 4 because he falls much later than that. But I do have Mark Andrews my tight end 4 because he's getting discounted at tight end 6, tight end 7 sometimes. Whereas, like, remember, we aren't drafting for last year. Like, he got penalized for that when we were taking him as the tight end 2 or 3 last year. And so to take that little bit of discount with him this year, that's what I'm kind of factoring in, because above all else, I understand there's more competition now, but above all else, he still played a career high 58% of their snaps, which was 12% higher than the year prior. And so, like, he was still on the field, and that's what I'm pretty much banking on. And it was the same as Marquise Brown, whereas, like, their volume didn't change so much whenever Lamar Jackson got healthy and off the COVID list, but their efficiency changed, and that's why Andrews in his last 6 games averaged 14 fantasy points. And so that's kind of where I'm at with Andrews and, like, that range, because I do think there's a discussion, like you said, Hawkinson and Dallas Goedert, who I also have jammed up there.
I think that's a great take on Andrews. I think that he's a terrific value right now. And it's funny because, you know, we go back to last year and you know, so a lot of people look at him as like a disappointment, but he still finished right around tight end 5. And I think that, you know, there's a chance that he really returns value and takes the next step this year. So I like that take. And I think that there's an argument to be made that, you know, it's not so much for me, Hawkinson versus Andrews, but I'd like to be able to walk away with the top tight end this year. I think it's kind of a good way to play, to have one of those, you know, top 5 or 6 guys this year. I think there's a significant tier break a little bit later on. So that's just kind of my take there. But I love the Andrews call.
Agreed. I personally, Dynasty, as you guys know, I'll invest in the proven tight end, especially at a high price. So I've got 0 pits other than the one Dan and I drafted at the 102 in a super flex tight end preem, where we're very skinny at the tight end position. So, I mean, you know, you have a share or two. If you're a believer, you go after your guy. But I've been burned enough times by the Ebrons, the Gesicki's, you go down the list. Show me the tight end that's giving you your money's worth at that price tag in year 1. And I like to build contenders. So that's kind of my approach at the position. Otherwise, you know, kind of like best ball. Otherwise I go cheap. But let's look, before I go to Dan, let's look, you know, you touched on certain players. Let's just finish with rookies. Sorry. But you touched on like the different formats. Do you have a general approach with rookies and the different formats? Like, let's say redraft and best ball versus your dynasty.
So it's just hard to keep those guys stashed on your bench, because we all know we all get the rookies in redraft leagues at FFPC, like the high stakes leagues, and then we're just stuck with them. And smarter people, of course, would have kept Justin Jefferson on the end of their bench. But sometimes you're just like forced to wait, and then suddenly, and I know it was week 3 when he usurped BC Johnson, which is what we all predicted. There's no way they would have kept on using him. But sometimes it's not possible with your roster to keep that guy around when he's doing absolutely nothing, even if it's only 2 games. And so it's harder to pinpoint in a redraft. But for best ball, not only do I get in March, and there are a couple sites that open, of course. You know, we all play on FFPC and NFFC, Underdog, Drafter. Like, there's so many now. And I get in March because, like, rookies are just the smash. Trey Lance is going as the QB 27 overall. Michael Carter was going in the 13th to 15th round. Yeah. You just take darts on these guys, same as Justin Jefferson last year, because you know their ADP is going to fall, are going to rise that much, and the opportunity cost is just so little to take chances on them. Having said that, for best ball drafts, there's so much good work being done right now by so many people. Jack Miller, Mike Leone, JJ Zachariason, Rich Freebar, the list goes on, that I defer to them, because I know what I'm doing in a room, but I've tried to articulate the macro sense of roster construction, and I can't do it well unless I'm like rambling like a madman and create like a 5 thoughts article, which I have coming out very soon, probably next week, where I use game theory. But Jack Miller actually wrote on NBC Sports Edge that rookie running backs average an 8.5% win rate over the last 3 seasons, whereas veterans were at an 8.2% rate. And he made a point to emphasize that rookies have experienced a leap in production in the second half of the season. So basically you get nothing, and then the second half of the season is when they turn it on. And so that's why I like to prioritize them in best ball, especially those on explosive offenses or in ambiguous situations, because we don't have to worry about the headaches. We don't have to worry about keeping them on the back of our bench. Whereas redraft, we have to do that. And like I said, we don't always get there. There were some people, take for instance, like Nick Chubb's year, there were some people yelling about it, thinking that who was the running back that was traded? Carlos Hyde. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people that like gave up on Nick Chubb, just thinking like, oh, but there were other very smart drafters who kept him, knowing like Carlos Hyde doesn't matter. Of course, Nick Chubb's going to get the run here, and they end up trading him. So it's all subjective at that point in redraft, and it's really just a matter of like a game of chicken, like with this one player at the end of your bench. And so it's just really risky and hard to pinpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And you know, a lot of times it kind of depends on knowing what kind of a league you're into.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a high stakes league, the odds that you can get by with dropping a rookie, or that anybody else is going to drop a rookie who might pop later, is pretty small.
Right.
It's just probably not going to happen. But in some of the mid stakes or lower stakes leagues, you can maybe take that chance that you might be able to drop a rookie and maybe pick him back up later, because people just aren't paying attention quite as much. Generally the higher the stakes get, the more people pay attention for obvious reasons, and so that definitely matters to me. But I think you've got it exactly right. I mean, you can get those rookie running backs, but you've just got to have the patience, and hold them. And a lot of times what helps is to have kind of a now and later strategy. Pick somebody like a David Johnson, who can get you some points right now, and you can just keep him in your lineup and then keep that rookie stashed on your bench. And then sometime, hopefully in the middle of the season, there's kind of a little bit of a transition, and your rookie starts picking up maybe when David Johnson starts dropping off. And so that's where you make your transition and move into, hopefully seamlessly from running back to running back. I mean, in a perfect world, that's the way it works. Mm-hmm. We know it's not always like that, but that's what you shoot for.
Yeah, that's a great point you made about the ambiguous situations presenting value, especially with the rookies. I mean, you look at this year, it's Javonte Williams, his price gets slightly depressed with Melvin Gordon there. The Trey Sermon situation, Travis Etienne. I think that's a great call. And there's been so many of these times you bring up Nick Chubb, but we look in the past and Alvin Kamara, who's in a murky situation. But a lot of times investing in these rookies when there's question marks around them ends up paying off big. And a lot of times their ADP is at a point where you're getting them as your running back 3. So I think that's a great point for looking for those guys.
Especially in the high stakes league, like Dan mentioned, those are typically like RB heavy to start, to lock up your anchors and your workhorses. They go quickly. And so that's why there's more room afforded to keep that ambiguous rookie around, because you got your guys you're going to start anyway. So you're just waiting for the ceiling of the next guy.
Absolutely.
Yep, exactly that. Yep, definitely. And it's kind of funny too, because there's been a lot of talk about the running back dead zone this year. That seems to be one of the hot topics.
Yeah.
Which makes it by default the wide receiver hot zone, right? And so I'm curious. That's become really a hot zone for those wide receivers. How are you handling that area of the draft? Are you going wide receiver heavy all the time? Are you sprinkling in some tight ends? And who's some of your favorite values in there?
So I want to be clear that we are all yelling about the RB dead zone and like getting 5 receivers for the 7th round. Like, the fact that it's become the echo chamber means none of us are going to win with that strategy. There's so many people doing that. It's just simple game theory that, of course, the winner isn't going to do that. And so
especially in the big tournaments, right?
Especially, yeah, exactly, because that's when everyone's doing it. So everyone just needs to be very careful and understand literally just game theory. It's like a big DFS tournament. So if everyone's telling you to do one thing, of course you're trying to do something. Having said that, all information is information. So use that to your advantage. But I do that strategy mostly for 12-team leagues. I do a lot. And so I do have a few receivers. Would you like me to go one-on-one and we kick them around? Do you want me to just list them quickly? What would you like?
Yeah, list off a few that you're really liking, that you think are, really nice values in that range.
All right. Let's start with DJ Moore, who everyone is down on, and I get it because he hasn't produced touchdowns, the most unpredictable stat in all of fantasy. But over the past 2 seasons, he has stacked the 6th most receiving yards. And I still think it's impressive that with Teddy Bridgewater, Joe Brady helped engineer a career high in passing yards for Teddy Bridgewater against what was, in hindsight, the league's toughest schedule of passing defenses. And so I'm in on Darnold, who we know chucks it deeper at a higher rate than Bridgewater. I don't know where the hell those balls are going to go. They could sail 20 yards into the stands, but we know there's going to be more explosive opportunity, and I'm chasing the opportunity. And when we mentioned that DJ Moore has only scored 6 touchdowns with that high amount of yards the past 2 years, DJ Moore still led the team in end zone targets last year. And so that's the kind of opportunity I'm looking for touchdown regression. And so I'm still all in over DJ Moore, 23 years old. There's literally no reason to be out of him, and yet everyone just cites Sam Darnold, and it's like that's not good enough. Like he's still a young superstar that we need to be in on. One more really quickly. Tyler Lockett is being incorrectly penalized for finishing with 6 fewer fantasy points total than DK Metcalf. Especially in best ball. Tyler Lockett won your week 3 different times. He was the wide receiver 1 2 times with 3 games of multiple touchdowns. And so I understand there was the second half where he was inconsistent, but just the fact that he delivered and now he's getting pushed down the board because he had just 6 fewer fantasy points total, it's not right. And so I've been drafting a lot of Tyler Lockett. I have more Tyler Lockett, maybe unfortunately, than DK Metcalf, because I do love DK Metcalf. He's my wide receiver 6 overall. And then one more, I've been trying to get in on Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, but Cooper Kupp's a discounted one. And there's a legitimate chance Cooper Kupp just outright scores Robert Woods. We know that Matthew Stafford's highest average yards per attempt over the last 5 years actually has come with Danny Amendola, and before that, Golden Tate, 2 premier slot receivers. And here comes Cooper Kupp. I don't look at Tutu Atwell, who is far too small. Everyone says Rondale Moore, but Rondale Moore squats 650 pounds. He's more athletic than any corner he's going to face at the Cardinals. Tutu Atwell is literally small, and Deshaun Jackson can't stay healthy. And if they do, I consider them boundary stretchers, just like Sammy Watkins for Marquise Brown, where it actually like opens the middle of the field and allows Sean McVay to do what he does. Everyone also looks like, for instance, the Rams offense is a nuanced one to talk about. It's fun because everyone suggests like Tyler Higbee led all tight ends actually in run blocking snaps last year, but it doesn't matter because we know when Sean McVay got the job with the Rams for 2 seasons, he led the league in 11 personnel. He adjusted. The issue is Jared Goff could not adjust. Matthew Stafford is still an above average quarterback, one of the best in the league, and will adjust accordingly. And so I think that opens up the field for Cooper Kupp in the middle. And those are 3 guys I'm very high on.
Yep, absolutely. Makes a ton of sense. Are you taking any tight ends in there, or are you just kind of really majoring on other positions at that point?
I have Andrews, Goddard, Hawkinson, Higbee, and Logan Thomas jammed into a tier in that range. I am not taking tight ends in that range. I'm actually trying to lock up Kelsey or Waller. I'm just done with the late round tight ends. I mean, how many times do we have to do this before we realize it just doesn't matter? And so I'm pretty much done with that. I try to go Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, and then I'll wait for my second guy. And usually I don't get any further than Gerald Everett, Adam Troutman, and then if you wait longer, Evan Ingram. It was Chris Herndon, but Chris Herndon was playing with the 2s at OTAs. Seems like those roster spots are wasted for me, unfortunately. But yeah, the one running back I'm taking in that range actually is Javonte Williams, because I think he makes a lot of sense if you start out the anchor hero RB, whatever the hell you want to call it, because if you have Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook, you're using that guy for essentially 2 spots anyways, and you're taking wide receivers the rest of the way, or like stacking accordingly with a quarterback or number 1 tight end if Waller or Kittle come back. And so Javonte Williams is a guy, worst case scenario, splits touches, just like Philip Lindsay did with Melvin Gordon in week 1. Best case scenario is he is the RB1 and eventually a 3-down option. And so it kind of works like you can use what I assume will be a low floor to start the year, and then what I assume will be a ceiling in the range in the second half, what we just talked about. And so he's kind of a running back that I will leap and still I know the Old Testament says not to draft in the RB dead zone, but I'll still take him around there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we call it the RB dead zone, but if you treat it as, just absolute, law that you can't draft an RB in there, you're going to miss out. I mean, they're always in the RB's dead zone. There are always RBs that end up shining anyway. So, it's just more of a rule of thumb of, tread cautiously, think about this. Why is this running back being drafted here instead of in the the first 2 rounds or in round 8, 9, or 10 or whatever? Which way really do I think that they probably belong? Do they belong lower or do they belong higher? So, but you can get yourself in trouble with that too. With James Conner got me in a little bit of trouble.
just know your formats. Like, that's all I tell everyone is, like, know exactly your scoring system and format, because everyone seems to be talking about strategies in the form of best ball mania. But like, we all know, I hate to break it to y'all, but you're not going to win $1 million. So get those 12 mans in.
Come on, man.
Get those smaller tourney ends. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yep.
Just getting back to, we just kind of went through a little rounds 3 through 5. Is there a particular way when you were liking to start out drafts in the first 2 rounds? Are you at a running back build as the strongest this year, or do some of those high volume wide receivers, are they very enticing to you? Maybe the second round, end of the first.
Right now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is actually my highest roster player in best ball across formats. But I think that's more or less the way the builds work out for me. Like, if you're at the end, you start Tyreek Hill and it comes back and you're like at, 2.3, 2.4. And it's like, oh, Edwards-Helaire's there. And I know people are higher on Gibson. That's fine, because I have them in the same tier. I don't care. Like, I hate to waste our finite time in life on arguing about the RB 13 or 14. Screw it. Just take the guy you want. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I hate wasting our life on those little arguments. And so, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, whatever, because he matches with Tyreek Hill. But overall, I think, even though, of course, I have McCaffrey ranked over Dalvin Cook, but the builds with Cook and Jefferson basically always come back are pretty great, because no one's taking Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins was actually really good last year. Completed 69% of his passes, very nice, for 8.1 yards per attempt from week 5 on. That's a massive stretch. I know they added Kellen Mond, but their defense also got so much better just in adding league average starters. Last year, I think week 1, they had a combined 8 starts in their entire defense and on the bench, just like no one had played NFL football before. Whereas this year, they at least signed veterans. And so in the instances that they do or don't explode, either way, soaking up those 3 guys are pretty safe, in my opinion, for a division that is wide open if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back. So I like getting that stack a lot at the 1.2.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins giving you 8 top 12 weeks last year.
He was
14.
so good.
Especially where he's going. People just have this aura about him that they don't like, or I don't know what it is, but you got to think he's got good receivers, got a good running back, the defense improved. I mean, what do you not like about him?
He actually represents how, to add to this answer, he represents how I draft at the end of drafts too, because it is possible, it is very unlikely, but it's possible to go like Hill and Kelsey, or Hill and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I think it's being highly overrated that then you then have to reach for Patrick Mahomes, because like quarterbacks are the most replaceable players in fantasy for a reason. Like, that was a big strategy in DFS tournaments last year, was stacking a matchup and then stacking one more offense. I cannot name you the number of times, because Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown provided standalone value. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson provided standalone value. And so you just stack 2 players in a good offense. And so to then go for Mahomes like a 3rd or 4th because you feel like you have to in a stack, I think everyone's getting that wrong, honestly. And so I don't mind grabbing the 2 stellar players in a top 5 offense, whether it be the Chiefs, Cowboys, Bills, list goes on, and just handling my rosters like that without the quarterback.
Dan, I'm going to steal this question because we're talking stacks, and I've been stacking 2 of these 3 receivers in Pittsburgh. I'll let you take my other question. If not, we'll whatever. We'll ask it together. But there's 3 receivers in Pittsburgh right now, and I can't help myself but like stacking 2 of them on the same best ball roster. You hear different guys that we really respect. Everybody's got their favorites. Who's your favorite in this Pittsburgh receiving core, and how are you approaching whether it's this offense or just these receivers?
I'll still often take, if I'm building heavy wide receiver, Deontay Johnson is my wide receiver 3, who I believe is the easy wide receiver 1 there. Team high, 26% target share, 10.5 targets per game in the 13 starts he avoided injury or wasn't benched for. And remember that Juju Smith-Schuster played all 16 games, so he was available out there for those games. Having said that, there's a giant discussion that needs to be had around Chase Claypool. And a lot of things get lost in the weeds from last year because it was the most chaotic year we had until this upcoming year, which is going to be worse. But like everyone's citing Brown stats, even though remember 3 of those games in the middle against the Eagles and the Texans, a couple other teams, didn't matter because the weather and rain was so bad that they couldn't do anything but run the ball. Those little things. And also like Calvin Ridley's week 3, where he had like 3 targets, didn't have a single catch because he was injured. He shouldn't have been playing. Like those things need to be thrown out the door when we're citing stats from last year and everyone just forgets they happened. Chase Claypool only played 62% of the team snaps from week 12 on. And remember, they beat the Colts in week 16. They had that bot. They benched their starters week 17. And Tomlin came out and said, yeah, Claypool hasn't played that much recently because he's hit the rookie wall. Like, I don't even think the rookie wall exists, but Tomlin believes it exists. And he benched Claypool. And that's why he played 20% rate of fewer snaps and only had a 16% target share in that time. Whereas Roethlisberger was not good, let's get that out of the way, throwing to Claypool. He went 10 of 34 on passes 20-plus yards deep. But what we love about those deep guys, what we try to chase is the guys getting volatile volume. Like we want a lot of volume for those hard-to-catch targets. And when you tell me Claypool will be, or I assume Claypool will be a full-time player this year, I'll take the 10-34. I don't care because I believe I'm going to see more since he won't be benched for the rookie wall this year. And so I definitely think there's an out, if not probable, that Claypool can and will outscore Deontay Johnson. But that's how I rank them. And I think Juju's a value in best ball. I'm not going to touch him in redraft. I just wouldn't know when to start him. But him, Jarvis Landry, a couple others, those guys just don't kill you because they provide targets every single week. And so that's why, even though he didn't eclipse 100 yards in any game last year, he's still a value for best ball.
Yep. And they definitely like him in the end zone, too. I mean, Ben looks for him. So.
Yeah, Claypool, I agree with you on Deontay. Deontay's just, he's got that super, super safe floor. He seems like the kind of guy that's going to catch close to 100 passes. But Claypool, I recently took him at the beginning of the 7th round in a Football Guys draft. He just seems like he's going to have an interesting range of outcomes where he could end up really helping people, potentially win leagues, or just going to kind of blend in. I think it's going to be interesting to see the way it pans out. And when he falls to the 7th, he's just a guy that I'm going to keep considering.
I totally agree. Yes. I have a lot of Claypool as well. And I know what I'm banking on. I know it could go awry quickly, but I still like the ceiling. I mean, that's a top 10 receiver if his ceiling hits. So I'm still chasing him in that range. He's going in the range of like Cortland Sutton, DJ Shark, those guys. And it's like, you can't tell me Chase Claypool doesn't have a higher ceiling than those guys.
No, I agree with you completely.
Yeah, it's kind of the next tier after the Ayuks, the Kenny G's, that next kind of tier where he's not necessarily going to be the main target, but he can give you those great weeks. Dan, do you want to take a crack at that Texas question?
Yeah, I do. I think
nice.
Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks. They're 2 wide receivers you identified as good values for best balls. Why do you think those are such good values? And where do you kind of see, is there, if they start rising up in drafts, is there a point where you're going to say, yeah, this is my limit?
To be fair, yes. I have been drafting Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins in the very last round. Not because I actually want them, because I genuinely think the Texans set the league record for fewest yards per play and points per game this year. They're just an atrocious offense. But for one, it's pretty impressive that Brandon Cooks has played for 4 different teams the past 6 seasons, and he's earned 100-plus targets and 5 of 6 of those. That takes talent. And, of course, he hasn't tried to earn 100 targets from Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor and whatever the hell else they're going to throw out there. But the only reason and the only time I take those guys, to be clear, is when I have 49er stacks, because just like Justin Herzig won Best Ball Mania last year, it is an edge to get lucky but then set ourselves up for that luck in weeks 15 through 17, because we know the best ball tournaments are held in 15 through 17. FFPC, good luck, because it's also week 14 with buys. I don't know what to tell you there. But 15 through 17, we know the 49ers play Falcons, Titans, Texans. In week 17, they're favored against the Texans in early lines by 16.5 points. And so that tells me run away with it. So like your Trey Sermon, Raheem Mostert, Trey Lance, if it's a run-heavy offense, and then you bring it back with the Texans wide receiver to set yourself up for success if you're lucky enough to get the championship week. And so that has been Brandon Cooks when it's made sense, or Nico Collins, because no one's going to take Nico Collins. And that's the only time when I have one or two 49ers players that I'm taking those two receivers.
I see. All right.
Only time.
That's the correlation with the 49ers. That's
it is the week 17 correlation. Yes. Maybe Brandon Cooks, if he's a volume hog, maybe provides like a couple games, but mostly I'm only taking him when I've already started two 49ers.
That's why he's the John Daigle, like in caps. Like first it was just that was caps, but now it's just all of it, just caps, because like that's some in-depth thought right there, and that's where the poker player is coming out when I just your thought process behind that. It's kind of following that poker player strategy.
Yeah,
like
the only time, because I guarantee you, I promise you, I don't know if you've done it. It does not feel good to click Brandon Cooks or Nico Collins at all.
No, it never does.
No.
It never does.
Are there any?
Not even asking about the running backs there. I'm guessing this is just a hard pass on the Houston running back situation. Now that we're talking about him.
Oh yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say Phillip Lindsay. I just think he's the better overall player in that backfield. But we also know Denver got rid of Lindsay, who was actually like a better runner than Melvin Gordon, because he's not really a good pass catcher. And so now we're mixing in David Johnson to that role at worst, and then Mark Ingram maybe at the goal line. Maybe Mark Ingram was brought in the leader guy because he is like a good character for your locker room. But again, I genuinely think this is one of the historically the worst offense we'll ever see. And so I prefer to just avoid that altogether, unless I have like the Lance and Ayuk, or I have a lot of Debo. Debo's high in my portfolio just because, like I said, like Juju, Jarvis Landry, a couple other guys, you can't go wrong with Debo because he's always going to be top 3 in rushing yards as a receiver. Like they invented the Deadpool package for him just to get him carries. And he only played 4 healthy games last year, but averaged 16 fantasy points in those 4 healthy games. And so as long as he's healthy, like he's going to be providing you a weekly floor. And I think his ceiling could outscore Brandon Ayuk actually.
Yeah, Debo's a great value right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of forgotten. He's especially with the new shiny Ayuk and the always shiny Kittle, and now the new quarterback. Just to go back with some of the guys we talked about, any other late round guys that we haven't talked about that you just you can't leave drafts without?
I got a couple sprinkled in. I've been taking a lot of, so if you go 2 heavy running backs or even 1 heavy, like I try to get one of, let's say, James White, Gio Bernard. Denny Carter did some great work on NBC Sports Edge that pretty much shows that you want to, in those late rounds, you want running backs that have the pass catching role with quarterbacks who don't run. And that kind of sets up well for like a Mac Jones offense, for Gio Bernard, a Tom Brady offense. Like they signed Bernard because they were unhappy with the way Fournette and Jones, who doesn't have any hands. Like he's a between the 20s, first and second down guy. That's it. And so like I take a couple of those guys, Jarrett McKinnon, Damian Williams. I make the stacks make sense. But that also brings me to my next point that Hayden Winks did some more work at the Underblog, I believe they're calling it. And he basically laid out for everyone that rounds 1 through 15, you got to do roster construction. Like we all know roster construction, however you cite it, like however you go about it, that's fine. But rounds 15 through 18, that's when you just got to get the players right. It doesn't even matter, like, because we are so bad. We think we're much better at predicting what happens than we really are. And so you just got to get the right players to provide value at the end of your bench. And so I have been kind of throwing my analysis or like my opinions out the window. And I think it's hard to get those rounds correct. And so instead, what I've been doing is just adding to my stacks with the quarterbacks I have on hand. So like, let's say it's Baker Mayfield I have with the Odell Beckham. I have a ton of Odell Beckham because he can be your wide receiver 4 very easily right now. And so in those rounds, like if I know I can't get the player right, if I don't think I can get the player right, I instead add like Donovan People-Jones and hope for 1 or 2 games of a ceiling, because I think that ceiling in a double stack is much easier to get just perhaps a shootout 1 week as opposed to getting a player right all the time. And so that's how I've been approaching, honestly, around 17 and 18, is just adding to my stacks and hoping I get 1 or 2 shootouts with them.
Yep, makes sense.
No, I like the Bernard call a lot. Actually, I actually heard Denny Carter talking it out. It's really funny to think about, Gio becoming such a value, but he seems like a player whose ADP could actually rise this summer a little bit, but it looks clear that he has a role. Would you agree on that? And is there any other players that you're seeing going late that you see as ADP risers this summer?
We talked about grabbing rookies earlier. I have a lot of Amari Rodgers. I think the fact that Byron Pringle had a 2nd-round tender, and see, like fantasy, everyone tries to cite like what happens over the season, but really what we should be doing is pocket analysis, because like the handful of players that get it right for 17, 18 games, like those are the players that are already at the top of the drafts. Everyone else like hits and misses throughout the year. And so like for Mecole Hardman, for instance, who's going well like 10 rounds earlier than Byron Pringle, like until week 10, until the bye week, he ran more routes than Byron Pringle. They went on to bye, and then after they came out of that, not only did Byron Pringle run more routes than Mecole Hardman, but if you isolate the playoffs only without Sammy Watkins, Byron Pringle played more than Mecole Hardman. And so like the fact he's available, he's a receiver available with Patrick Mahomes in the last round. I'll never argue against someone's last round pick because, like I said, it's hard. And so I've just been grabbing him as well. Those are 2, Amari Rodgers and Pringle are like 2 of my guys.
Nice. So are you we'll go a little bit off script, but where are you at on Aaron Rodgers? Is he playing in Green Bay or not playing or playing somewhere else? What's your best guess? My
guess is he won't play. My guess is he will hold out, but also it's a very like technical dance around the, I think it's 26.1 million he'd owe, maybe 36. It's like it's such a odd conversation, but I would guess that he won't play. And so for large field tourneys, like if I have 3 QB builds, you don't get one of the top 5 and you wait for like a Trevor Lawrence, Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, whatever. That's usually when I go 3 quarterbacks because the first one I draft doesn't have a rushing floor. And that's when I'll actually sprinkle in Jordan Love as like my 3rd quarterback, just in case. Devontae Adams would have to be re-ranked appropriately, of course, if that was the case, because like with Aaron Rodgers, he's been the Christian McCaffrey of wide receivers. He just hasn't failed you at all since 2018. And so it's a tricky situation. But yeah, I would guess that Aaron Rodgers is in play. I don't have a lean, so don't quote that on a meme and put that out there. I don't know anything. I know as much as you.
I love it.
Makes sense. I kind of wonder if I tend to think he's going to play, but because Rodgers has got such an ego, and this might be the Vikings fan in me talking, but he's got such an ego. I'm not sure if he can handle not playing and not being the center of attention. I kind of think what he's trying to do is he's trying to let Gutekunst twist in the wind here a little bit and see if I think he knows he needs like a week of training camp at best, or a week before the season, and he's going to be fine. I mean, he knows the offense, he knows what he's doing, and so I think he's just going to sit out and just try to wait it out and see if people in Green Bay get nervous and maybe Gutekunst gets forced out or something like that, or that Love implodes while he's playing preseason games, and it's just obvious that he's not going to be the answer. I think Rodgers sees several different ways that holding out could help him, but eventually I think he's going to want to come in and not have to fight that battle on the money. But
my Vikings futures hope not.
Right, exactly. I mean, can you imagine if Aaron Rodgers isn't playing for the Packers? I mean, that division is
wide open.
Yeah, it's right there for the Vikings for sure.
Especially when Andy Dalton has his soul taken away by Aaron Donald in the first half of week 1.
It'll be Fields before you know it.
Yeah, I genuinely think like Fields over/under starting is 1.5 quarters. Like it's just there's no way they stick with Dalton. Like Aaron Dalton's going to eat him alive. No way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's over after game 1, in my opinion. I think that you don't want to break a rookie out against that defense. I think it'll just happen naturally.
And like I do actually think Andy Dalton starts. Like if I had to bet, it's definitely Dalton. Like I don't think there's a chance Nagy goes back on his word like that. Like there's a reason why they're a bad coaching staff and a bad organization. They got lucky with Justin Fields, but also remember they did the thing that the rest of the league didn't want to do. The rest of the league was down on Justin Fields. So of course it takes the ignorant team of all of them to draft Justin Fields because they don't listen to what everyone else says. And so they got lucky and get it that right because Justin Fields is a superstar. Justin Fields is awesome, but they're still going to start Andy Dalton and then he's going to die and then they're going to start Justin Fields.
Yep, exactly. And I just want to circle back. I loved your analysis on Trey Lance and why you're taking him at 102 in that league where Friedman's taken Lawrence at 101, because having Lance tied to Kyle Shanahan, who's actually a good coach, versus having Fields tied to Nagy, who really hasn't shown out to be a good coach, at least thus far. I think that makes a big difference. And it, even though we look at Lance and we say, well, he only played one game last year and, he's got the least experience of any of these starters that were drafted in the first round. That right there being paired with Shanahan, I think gives him a better chance. And the fact that Shanahan wanted to grab him also says something, because Shanahan definitely has a knack for getting the things right with the quarterback. He knows what he's looking for. He knows how he wants to design that offense. Running back, he can take anybody and make them work. But I think he knows what he's looking for in a quarterback. So I like the thought that you were going with Lance there. I do think Lance and Fields are pretty similar talents, but just the coaching kind of nudges it over towards Lance.
Totally. You said it best. 5 years of a rookie contract under Kyle Shanahan. That's all I need to know. They have the rest of those 5 years to max out the talent around him, like the Jets are already doing with Zach Wilson.
Interested to hear your thoughts on Zach Wilson and how you see him doing, this year and in his career. Do you see him becoming a success, or do you have apprehensions about him?
I genuinely don't know, because there are some big time bugaboos. Just the fact that I believe I wrote this in my best ball QB tours. Like he only played 2 top 25 defenses according to like ESPN's rankings, or Bill Connolly's defensive rankings in college, and he did so poor against them. Plus, he had four guys in the NFL right now who was his offensive line last year, and so just like the tunnels, the lanes he threw were so wide. Was also off target, which is why it's funny they're not using Denzel Mims in the first string offense, because like Denzel Mims is the guy who would make up for Zach Wilson's errors if he isn't accurate, because Mims is the guy to go up and get balls, as he showed with both Darnold and Joe Flacco last year. But I still treat Wilson as a low end, as a guy in 2 QB builds, because it's guaranteed he starts 17 games. There's just no way, even if he's bad, that he's not starting all 17 games. And so yeah, when I have a top 5, top 8 option, like I wouldn't do it in a Trey Lance build, for instance, just like I wouldn't do Trey Lance in a Dak Prescott build, because Dak Prescott has a bye in week 6. No, Trey Lance has a bye in week 6, Dak Prescott in week 7. You basically need to guarantee that Trey Lance starts after the bye. I can't do that, even though I think he does. I can't guarantee it. And so I don't want to screw over my 2 QB builds if Trey Lance isn't the starter guaranteed in week 7. But Zach Wilson is starting every game. And so like to get him behind Mahomes or whomever else who doesn't overlap in a bye week, totally comfortable with that. I don't know how he's going to pan out, but we've also seen the past, going back 3 years ago, as recently as last year with Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. Like, we don't know anything about quarterback evaluation. Front office don't know. NFL coaches don't know. Analysts don't know. Scouts don't know. No one knows how to evaluate quarterbacks correctly. And so I'm leaving it wide open for Zach Wilson. I do love how they spent their first 3 draft picks on making his situation better, and then also got Morgan Moses to strengthen up an already strong offensive line. So I appreciate how they treated the picks after taking him.
Yeah, it seems like they really seem to be making the right moves. It all is going to come down to, Wilson. But, they've certainly put pieces in there that he can be successful. Now that we're talking Jets, there's one I want to hear your opinion on Michael Carter, who's rising up draft boards in FFPC and NFFC. I'm on board Carter this year leading the Jets and being a useful fantasy player. Are you leading that?
I would imagine he opens as the pass catching back. He is, of course, the most expensive in the backfield. We don't know what's going to happen. We know that LaMichael Pirine, being of the last regime, has already been like pushed to the bench. They're not even using him at OTAs or weren't using him. And so it is a three-headed backfield with Carter, Tevin Coleman, who's apparently the starter, and Ty Johnson. But for the most part, we know what the other two guys bring, even though Coleman is familiar with Mike LaFleur's offense from their time overlapping in San Francisco. And so I'm just taking the pass catching back in Carter, who I also believe has at least even if it's small, it's a potential for 3-down work, whereas Tevin Coleman I don't think has that potential at all.
Yep, makes sense.
All right, guys, before we go to the last section of the show, again, we could be here all night because I could already see this going down the slippery slope. We've already gone way off the rails with the questions, and we might throw a couple more at our buddy John. But guys, he's going to talk about a player that you've been passing on in the first round to help you win your leagues this year. First round, you've been passing on him every time. So before we get to that, smash the like. Smash the subscribe, and we got to give a quick shout out to our friends over at myffpc.com. Again, we talk about Abib, we talk about these guys that we've had on the show, the Sharks. They're winning 6-digit numbers, guys, playing fantasy. Like it's reality. This is not fantasy. This is reality, guys. You go to myffpc.com, you sign up. Yeah, if you haven't signed up yet, send me a quick DM at Goat District on Twitter. We'll hook you up with a sign-up bonus, whether it's best ball. They've got a best ball tournament right now for 150 buy-in, $100,000 first place. You got a couple tournaments playing for $500,000. You've got the dynasty leagues that never fold. Shout out to Dynasty Depot if you want to go and buy some orphans to get into those leagues. And then we've got our ever so famous best balls going from $5 this year, guys. So no excuse. I don't want to hear no excuse. I don't want to invest a lot. All you need is $5 to play, whether it's live or slow draft. You've got all the options right there on myffpc.com. We talk about it because that's where we play, guys. That's where, as you've heard in the last few weeks, a lot of our guests do really well. So make sure you sign up. Make sure you reach out to us if you want to get a little sign up bonus. Let's get back to the John Daigle. John, I had to ask you about this guy. I know you feel like you're kind of repeating yourself, but you're number 3 overall guy. And this is one of these guys where I've been warming up to the idea of this running back, but like a lot of the listeners right now or people watching, he's a guy that I kind of would pass on in the first half of those first round drafts earlier in the offseason. So tell us about your man that you've got ranked number 3 now.
In industry drafts, I'll take him. In other drafts, he usually slips to 1.8 to 1.10, somewhere around there. That's because Ezekiel Elliott is my 3rd overall player. Let's zoom out and look at the landscape of that first tier, because I do have him in the first tier. Alvin Kamara, of course, has question marks of his target share from either Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, since Drew Brees is no longer around to pass in the ball. Derrick Henry, we don't know what this offense will be with Todd Downing rather than Arthur Smith. Plus, maybe become they more pass heavy. They still don't have a good defense. Maybe they are forced to pass the ball. We just don't know. Saquon Barkley is likely going to be limited the first month. Also, like the Giants offense was horrible last year. And just because they get a good running back, an elite running back, to me, like that doesn't mean they improve on finishing bottom 3 in plays per game. Like they're not a faster offense just because Saquon Barkley comes back. So I'm very much worried. Aaron Jones, if you put him up there, maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't there, which big question mark if it's Jordan Love. And then even if you want to go beyond that, Austin Eckler is the goal line back because he wasn't last year under Anthony Lynn. Jonathan Taylor, like is Carson Wentz a 3rd-string quarterback still? Because if so, they're not moving the ball anyways. And Nyheim Hines still averaged 9.5 touches behind him last year. So Nyheim Hines is steered around. Whereas Zeke, you can explain quite easily all the issues that happen. You start with COVID fog, you get to Dak Prescott being absent, and thus Zeke facing a higher rate of stacked boxes. You have the injury. You have 3 starting offensive linemen missing a combined 36 games. And then, of course, the fact that the Cowboys actually played in hindsight was the 2nd toughest schedule of opposing rush defenses. Actually, with Dak Prescott, small sample I know, but first 4 full games, that first month of the season, Zeke averaged a career high 7.5 targets weekly and the 3rd most fantasy points per game among running backs. We know, like, we're not part of the network talking head media. We know Dak is the MVP. He runs the offense, no one else. So, of course, Zeke couldn't move the ball whenever Dak wasn't there. And this year, he actually has the 4th easiest projected rushing schedule. And so, for all those reasons, I genuinely think it was a worst-case scenario on 5 different scenarios. Even if you go to Tony Pollard and say Tony Pollard gets more touches, I don't know how that's the case because Tony Pollard hasn't mattered ever. Tony Pollard averaged just 7 touches per game in the 15 games that Zeke was healthy for. He wasn't even healthy, but he was still getting all the touches because he's Zeke, and the Cowboys know they're tied to him. Tony Pollard had one top 35 finish last year. It was the one game Elliott missed. And by the way, that was the first game he's missed since his freshman year at Ohio State because he's an Iron Man. He just stays healthy. And so overall, I don't mind. I genuinely don't mind when people draft Tony Pollard because unlike your Alexander Madison and others, like Pollard showed he is an RB1 if the RB1 is out. Like the other guys get game scripted off the field. So this is not a knock against Tony Pollard. It's just the fact that to think Tony Pollard is standalone value behind Zeke, that's crazy to me. And Zeke is being discounted for all the wrong reasons. So I had a toss-up. I've been at an argument with myself between him and Kamara all year. I just think the question marks are more looming for Alvin as they are for Zeke. So that's why he's my 3rd overall player.
I like it. Yeah, I think, and also, you have to look at the contract and, they're tied into him for a couple more years.
Yep.
And Jerry Jones is not the type of person who's going to admit that he spent money poorly. So,
No.
If the coaching staff doesn't want to use him, I strongly suspect the edict is going to come down from on high. Use it.
The worst part about all this is that they play the Bucks week 1 in an island game, and it's not a good matchup. And so if Zeke has 24 touches with 42 yards and no touchdowns, I'm the one getting yelled at. I'm already mentally prepping myself for my mentions to burn, even though I do think he's, like I said, he's my 3rd overall player. I think he's an amazing pick. It's where my money's going. I would never try to validate my opinion with a take. It's literally where all my money's going because I think I actually entered an early draft, April, I think it was, and took him there. And then Fantasy Mojo was watching over the draft. Maybe he was in it. And he tweeted saying hey, you have a great draft so far. It's first 5 or 6 picks. But look where I got Zeke. And he got Zeke at the 2nd round turn. And it's oh, that's what we're doing. And recency bias plays such a big factor in drafts still, even though drafts have gotten much sharper every single year. And so you can get him at the end. And he's, definitely, I'm going to be overweight on him this year.
It's a nice little week 2 buy. With the Zeke running into that defense in week 1, and it's kind of you want to buy a little Bitcoin right now is a good time. A little dip is not a bad thing, people. Just opportunity to buy what you believe in, and that's
buy the Zeke dip.
Buy the Zeke dip.
I'm gonna say the Bitcoin. Did Noah Riddell show up out of nowhere?
I love it. I didn't have my soundboard ready there, but I had to throw in the Zeke question in there. Guys, any questions? I know we all have a million, but is there one right now? Let's what's one that you just have to ask Daigle before we shut this thing down? See, I'm already calling him by his last name.
I have one question. Last year, we've actually asked to a few of our guests, and it's been interesting to hear some of the responses. Last year, we saw such amazing win rates on teams that drafted Stephon Diggs, and others had, not quite as high win rates, but very strong win rates on Keenan Allen drafted teams. Both guys were going in that, 6th round-ish. Is there a wide receiver that you see that's going a little bit? I know you mentioned a couple of those guys in the 3rd through 5th already, but is there a wide receiver that you see as a league winner that's maybe very mispriced right now? That's going a little bit later.
A little bit later in the 6th round. T. Higgins is still going.
No. 6th round, 5th round could even be the right answer. But is there a player that in particular that you see could really, really finish high up? Maybe get a larger target share than we'd anticipated.
I got 2. One is probably a little bit cheating, but T. Higgins is such an amazing buy. Even if Jamar Chase leads the team in targets, the situation is we don't know. Again, I always just lean on the fact that we don't know as much as we think. And so, to get the 2 discounted guys and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, I'll do that all day. This is a Rich Rebar thing. He actually mentioned that assuming Jamar Chase's ADP holds, he's actually going to finish this offseason as the second highest drafted rookie wide receiver ever behind Amari Cooper's rookie year, which tells us already like that's an anomaly situation, an anomaly ADP. And so I'm certainly worried, even though I love Chase the talent and love the player to fit as well. So I have just been taking whomever it is when it makes sense, the Joe Burrow double stacks with the two guys who fall. The one that I know, like, I don't have my exposure here, but if I looked it up, he'd probably be like top 5 wide receiver. I keep taking Nelson Aguilar. Showed rapport with Derek Carr.
I love the Aguilar. Nice.
He doesn't overlap. His skill set does not overlap with any of their wide receivers. Kendrick Bourne's a possession, third down and red zone guy. Whereas we know Jacoby Myers is just an intermediate receiver. So Nelson Aguilar is going to have free reign, and also the contract he received in free agency, just to get it that early. We know he's going to play every single snap. It's almost as if they're just done with N'Keal Harry by now. So I have a lot of Nelson Aguilar, since I think we should be chasing the Mac Jones Patriots offense, not the Cam Newton Patriots offense. And that would lend a higher ceiling to the downfield guy like Aguilar.
Yeah. I love that take. And I was not expecting that take either, so I appreciate the Aguilar.
I love the Aguilar.
It doesn't feel good to say, but yeah.
Where else can you get literally the wide receiver one in an offense? I just grabbed them again because I can't stop grabbing them. I think it's round 15 that I just grabbed them. And round 15 on BB10s. I mean, he's like that's like when Kenny G falls to you after all those other wide receiver ones, in the 5th or 6th round. You're like, oh, okay, I could still like salvage my wide receiver core even though I went running back early. But Aguilar in the 15th, like, you're not finding a wide receiver one on his offense. And I feel like that New England offense is one of those offenses that will probably outperform what the expectations are right now.
Which is why I like James White. Yeah, it's like I said, everyone's assuming the Cam Newton offense, and I don't think that's the case. Like, Mac Jones's worst case scenario is coming in after the first month, and his best case scenario is starting week 1. And so we could see an entirely different offense, which opens up completely. And Aguilar, even Jonas Smith and Hunter Henry, like, just no one is going to be running similar routes at all.
I think that's an awesome take. And the T Higgins one, you're getting that. If Chase was not there, T Higgins, we'd be talking ourselves into going in that 3rd roundish.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be looking like a proper alpha. So I like that. I think he's still got a chance to have more. I think he should have more targets than he did last season, and he could end up being a big time weapon in the red zone. So I like that. It's another one of these high ceiling guys, and it certainly won't hurt you in that 6th round.
For sure.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the Mac Jones. I mean, what a great late quarterback to take in any best ball. Why not? And one thing I really like is I'm watching Nelson Aguilar and Jacoby Myers ADPs heading towards intersection. And I have a hard time figuring out in what world Jacoby Myers should be ever going in front of Nelson Aguilar, but it's starting to happen.
Yeah.
Nelson Aguilar even led the Raiders in end zone targets over Darren Waller last year. And I do think Jacoby Myers is actually a really good, especially for an undrafted receiver. He's a good pick. He's like a league average player. Like, he has great hands, but like for fantasy, Nelson Aguilar already showed us last year he can explode in a new scheme. So of course I want him with the younger, better arm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind Jacoby Myers real late because again, he's just, he's one of those guys who's got a lot of want to, and, he's just showing that he's, he can be a capable NFL player. And, if you can get 2 or 3 spike weeks out of him in a best ball, then you're probably fine. But give me Aguilar all day. And the fact that Jacoby is starting to rise up into Aguilar's range is just, like I say, it's mystifying to me.
Mm-hmm.
John, this has been, like I said, man, we can keep going on. We could keep going all night, but obviously we don't want to keep you too long. You've been generous enough with 120 so far. Just, remind the people what you currently have going on. Give them a quick reminder on the Twitter handle and anything else that you want to share right now. We appreciate you, buddy. This was a blast.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. It was a true pleasure. NBCSportsEdge.com. You can find my best ball tiers that I continue updating. If you go to @NotJDaigle, that is my Twitter handle, which is the worst. I've tried paying @Daigle and @JohnDaigle, who are not taking my money right now. I will still continue convincing them, though, because I thought in 2009 as a dumb kid that I wanted to live in anonymity. And now, like, I need actually my name to be better. So working on it. But the moral of the story is pinned at the top of my account is my best ball top 250 CSV. And so you can actually download my rankings if you wish for 12-man leagues, whether it be tournaments or just normal 12-man leagues. I even pinned down the RB dead zone, so you're making sure to get that large group of wide receivers when they fall to you. Other than that, subscribe to A Good Football Show. And then if you're into the redraft thing, we have a deal going on. We just got done and released our online draft guide that will also update and have more features throughout the next couple of months through training camp. And you can use the promo code Daigle10 for 10% off.
Dan, it's always a blast, buddy. I know you're having a bit of an internet challenge tonight, but it's all good, brother. I'm surprised I didn't, because we've got a big storm that's kind of brewing around here. But always a blast hanging with you. How fun was tonight? And some parting words for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this ever since Theo said that he got John on with us. I love following John's work. He's John, you just do a great job, with everything that you do, and just getting to talk to you, for the last almost hour and a half here has been fantastic. Even though I've occasionally missed 30-second snippets of what you've been saying. I'll go back and see, that'll just give me a reason to go back and listen to it again, so I can catch those 30 seconds here and there where I was froze up. So, but thanks for coming on, really appreciate it, and get out there and interact with John, with Theo, with me, with JD. The best way to learn about football is start talking about it with other enthusiasts. Doesn't matter whether you got 5 followers or 5,000. If you ask any one of us a question, I guarantee you'll probably get an answer, and maybe even a little bit of an explanation, debate, whatever. So don't be afraid to get out there and just start talking to people. For sure,
man. No, he's sorry, Theo. I'll just throw Dan's Twitter just one more time, because sometimes he doesn't like to. He's got so many followers already. He's like, I'm joking. He's at Overhyped Sleeper, guys. No E at the end, and I call him the Underhyped Sleeper, because he's legit a sleeper in the industry, in my opinion. Anyone who listens to this show will agree with me. Our buddy John agrees. Theo, to you, my friend, you've been rocking the district with your guests, with your show. I mean, just all of it is. We appreciate you, and give your parting words for tonight. And I know you were pumped for tonight.
No, I was super stoked for tonight, and John exceeded my expectations. I think all June long we've been trying to bring you guests that are going to help you win your league. It's never too early to start thinking about winning your league and getting prepared for the end of August and September. And John certainly shared a couple of guys tonight that opened my eyes. And I'm looking forward to hearing you guys in your show continuing to bring the awesome content to help us keep staying ahead of the curve heading to the end of the summer. So this was awesome, John. We really appreciate having you on.
Of course. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, guys. This was a blast. Shout out to our little chat room, Casey McCoy, with a little clap, guys. Tonight was a blast. I mean, we talk about the guests we've had on. We keep bringing the hits. We hope that you've been following along. We hope that you're not missing anything and your league mates aren't, because then you're in trouble. But no, this was a blast tonight, guys. Make sure you, as we said earlier, check out our supporters. We're lucky enough to work with great brands that we believe in. That's the only reason they're on this show, because we use them. FFPC is the place to play fantasy football, guys. We talked about all the formats, myffpc.com. You see my hat right here, right there. I show you the goodness on the weekly when I'm wearing my shirt tonight. I got my Smashing Pumpkins. Shout out to one of my favorite bands. But usually we've got the Viridian goodness on. So go to viridianglobal.com/collection/Goat District for all your goodness. And Dynasty Depot, we talked about it. it's hard to get into these dynasty leagues if you're not getting in now. And it's hard to get into more established leagues because they just don't fold, guys, and people barely leave these dynasty leagues on the FFPC. So you can go to Dynasty Depot to auction, win some auctions, buy some orphans. And that's it. We just want to thank you guys for hanging with us. We want to thank you guys for smashing the like button, because we know you won't leave without doing it. But that's just a little way that you can show us a bit of support for this free content. And guys, we're here all off season. I'm going to drop a tweet tomorrow with all the guests that we've had in the month of June. I'd be hard pressed for you to find a show that's giving you the VIP list of winning fantasy football players. And that's what we're doing. This is where fantasy players like to hang. Check out Shark Week if you missed it. John's been amazing. We thank him. Dan, Theo, always a blast, guys. Be safe, be happy, and we'll check you all later.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them.